And we are live. Welcome to the show. It's me, Troy Francis, and I'm joined today by a very special guest indeed, Mr. Rich Cooper of Entrepreneurs in Cars. Good to see you, Rich.
What's up, guys?
Hey, man. So we were just catching up just before the show, but obviously normally I chat to Rich on Rule Zero on Saturdays, which we are actually doing tomorrow, and I think on this channel as well, although we'll confirm that later on. But today I really wanted to do a deep dive and to pick Rich's brains on business and entrepreneurialism, because that's an area that I'm fascinated with, and it's an area that is really Rich's speciality, I think is fair to say. And obviously Rich has been hugely successful as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, etc., etc. And now seems like a great time to talk about this stuff. Because of the situation we're currently in, right? I think it's sort of. Would you agree, Rich? I mean, like, to me, I felt ever since this started that if nothing else, right, this has got to be a time for sort of reevaluation for guys in terms of their lives, you know, where they are in terms of career and business and everything else.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are wondering. Who was it that said this the other day? I can't remember, but they said something along the lines of the two most addictive things are heroin and a salary.
Yes.
And when you lose access to your income and the government tries to replace it with a small check, for the most part, for some people, they got a pay rise. But for most people, I think that if they've been laid off or their position is not needed because of this COVID situation, they get a problem. I mean, most people live paycheck to paycheck. I know here anyway, as long as I've tracked the debt service ratio in Canada, it's gone up from the early 2000s from like 130 something percent all the way up over 170% now. So what that means is people basically have way more debt than what they, hang on a second, I got an alarm here going off. What that means is they have way more debt than what they have in the way of income. So there's a lot of guys living paycheck to paycheck, which is not a real good way to live life to begin with. But at the same time, somebody takes away your paycheck, your salary, you got to ask yourself, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, before we really get into the weeds with this stuff, I'll just do a little bit of a plug for my online course, which is Charisma and Dating Academy. So that opened yesterday. It's still going. The enrollment period is until the end of Monday, the 4th of May. So you've still got 4 days, or just shy of 4 days now to enroll. There's a link below to the to go directly to the course. So you can find out more on the information page. But I would encourage you to get in, because, as I say, the cart closes again on Monday, midnight EST. This is a premium course about charisma and dating, and once it's closed, it's closed. I will probably open it again later in the year, but as and when I do, the cost will go up. So as I say, just go, if you're interested at all, have a look at the link below, and that will take you through to the information on that. So Rich, obviously I know your origin story and your sort of Batman origin story in terms of business and so on, but for the viewers, for any people who aren't aware of yourself and your work, could you talk us through a little bit about how you came to sort of self-employment, really, and how you became, where that entrepreneurial drive originally came from, I suppose.
I think it originally started when I was a kid, because I remember, I'm going to say 6, 7, 8 years old, definitely under 10 for sure. For some reason, all of my friends got something that was called an allowance at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if kids still get those today, but I was given 25 cents, which was nothing, right? It was,
yeah.
I mean, like, even back then, you couldn't even buy a candy bar for 25 cents a week. And I was still required to do a lot of things around the house, cut the lawn, shovel the driveway, all that sort of stuff. And I think my friends were getting, like, I don't know, $5-10 a week, in some cases. So it was peanuts. So I had to figure it out for myself. My parents would never give me that much. I always had to earn it.
Yeah.
And I figured that, like, in the wintertime, I could charge people $20 to shovel their driveway. And, there I was, a 7-8-year-old kid pushing heavy ass snow around. It's deep too, right? I mean, we got a lot more snow back then, but, and I'd make $20 for that. So to me, that was worth my time rather than sitting there and cutting my parents' lawn or moving their snow. At least I could go out and earn some money that way. So,
Yeah.
you know, like anybody else, I wanted stuff. I wanted to join the Knight Rider Club and get, you know, Michael Knight to send me over his like special mailer kit and be part of that club and like all the other stuff. So you needed money to sign up for all those things. So I started doing that. I did paper routes when I was a teenager. I did a mobile car cleaning business. So I'd go to dealerships and they basically contract me to wash their cars. So I did that for one summer with one of my best friends. And then I did what everybody was told to do, which is go and get your college degree in some BS and then get a job, which I did for my 20s pretty much, which by the time I was 30 or so, I think it was 30 or 31, I got offered a package to go home. Not really offered a package, if I'm being honest. You know, you get hired for fit and you get hired, or sorry, you get hired for your resume and you get fired for fit. So I went home around 30, about 3 weeks after I bought my first home. I had friends that were renting for me, so they were paying the mortgage, so that was fine. But I was left in a position where it's like, okay, do I go and do the same thing at another guy's company or another large business and potentially deal with the same nonsense that I was dealing with? At the time when they packaged me off, I was working for Canada's largest collection agency. It was known as Equifax, and about a year to two prior to that, they got bought out by a large, I think it was an Indian-owned company, or it was American, but it was the largest one in North America at the time. And just, you know, me and my boss, we didn't gel. He was a French-Canadian guy, and he liked to flick boogers at me all day long, if you know what I mean. So I'm the kind of guy that doesn't take that. So when they had an opportunity to chop some headcount, then it was me that got it. So I got sent home and I had to figure it out. So I started up my own debt relief business, ran that for about, I'm going to say 12 odd years before I handed it off to my brother, basically. And as I was transitioning out, I already had my money sorted. I had private equity investments that were generating passive income. I got about 8 different sources of income. So kind of when I leaned into YouTube, I didn't really monetize it for the first couple of years. For me, it was just fun. I wanted to hang out with friends that had cool cars and a story to tell. So I called it Entrepreneurs and Cars. My plan was I'm going to interview all these entrepreneurs and their success rides. But I ran out of friends with cool cars. So I just kind of started talking about other things. I started talking about how I would hire people with parties, how to utilize lawyers in your business. And then not a lot of people watch that. And then one day somebody said in the comments, you should do a video on the kind of women to avoid dating. So I'm like, all right, let's do that. And then that one just blew up. It got picked up in the algorithms. And I kind of stayed on my own wounds at the same time, because I'd kind of gone through this crap breakup with a single mommy that really threw me for a loop and kind of pushed me into the red pill.
Because and I mean, your channel obviously has blown up massively, but that was never really the intention at the beginning. It was never something you were going to monetize. It wasn't sort of a business idea, was it? Or did you ever, in the back of your mind, think actually maybe there's some money to be made from this, you know, this YouTube thing?
I figured out pretty quickly that it's hard to make money off YouTube alone, especially if you're going to run a car channel, because the amount of production that's involved to put out a quality piece of content that people are really going to like. And the other thing with YouTube is it's a never-ending vicious cycle. You're always running on a hamster wheel. People like the thing that people don't understand about YouTube. They think it's easy, but if you release a video, you get a big spike in views, and then YouTube will show it to a bunch of new people, and then 99.9% of the time it just drops off, and you have to have another video out within 3 days to keep your views up. It's very rare that something gets picked up in the algorithms and recommended to new viewers now. For me anyway, for the last year or two, it hasn't happened that often, if at all anyway, for the last 2 years period. But you're constantly putting out content, and it's not a great, I mean, you can't make a living off YouTube, period. There's not many people that can. There's some lifestyle vloggers, there's some pranksters, there's a couple other categories which, like beauty, you know, seems to do well. But you really have to have multiple sources of income if you're going to do anything long term off that platform.
I mean, what's your view then? Because you are somewhat different to many of the people in our space who talk about business and talk about, because a lot of people will veer towards talking about personal branding, or they'll basically veer towards talking about an online business model of some kind. And obviously you're different to that because you have an actual, you know, business in the more traditional sense in its own right, and then you're kind of doing this on top, if you like. And obviously you've gone on to be very successful. But a lot of guys, I guess myself included, but a lot of guys who create material about business will say, well, why don't you? They'll effectively go down the Gary Vee route, won't they? And say, well, you can create a brand of you can make content, and then you can build an audience, and you can sell to that audience. But that's, I mean, what's your view on that whole philosophy of business? Because it can work, but it's certainly not an easy route, is it, to the big bucks?
Yeah, this is an unpopular opinion, but most people, most business experts, they're full of shit. Okay. They're always trying to sell you some quick and easy way to fortunes, and if I'm being honest, they don't exist. There's a long, like every overnight success that I know, and when I'm talking about, the overnight successes that people look at is guys that have multi-million-dollar exits from their business. Like if you go back to, I think it's Playing to Win episode number 12 or 13 with my friend Brad Pedersen. He's had ups and downs throughout his entire life, and he had a multi-million-dollar exit from his business. In fact, he was pushed out of his business. It was kind of like a Steve Jobs story. So most of these guys that have had their big successes, they have a big exit out of their business, and they have something to show for it. Most of them are quite quiet. They don't make any noise about it. They don't even want people to know about it. They don't want the public to know what kind of car they drive. They just want to lead a peaceful life and move into the next thing. It's the shouty ones that you see leaning up against the Lambos that are running pre-roll ads on YouTube about how awesome their their investment course is, or their exchange currency, Forex, investing in the stock market, special copy and paste bullshit that do nothing. There's a lot of disappointed people out there that sign up for that crap, and I don't have a lot of sympathy for them, because if you think you're going to get anything quick like that by copying and pasting codes to life, you basically deserve what you get. The amount of work that's done to overnight success is years. It's that short, snippet of time that people see as overnight success. They don't see everything behind that. It's like the tip of the iceberg. You don't see the entire story.
Yeah, absolutely. What about OnlyFans? Do you not see OnlyFans as being the new way to? So you talked recently a lot about, you have some time really, about playing to win versus playing not to lose, which seems to be a key ethos of yours. What could you talk around that a little bit in terms of how you see that the key difference between the two things?
Yeah, so last night I did a broadcast with Pejman Gadami, and this guy, I think in 2018, he said his collective revenue is like $87 million for his businesses. So he said that when he was young, so this is a poor Persian immigrant to North America. He said that when he was young, he just didn't want to be poor, right? He didn't want to, sleep on a mattress in his uncle's house, living with his mom. And that's a playing not to lose philosophy. That's not playing to win. Playing to win is going for gold. Yeah, that's going all in. That's going for the big win, which is what he pivoted into when he got laid off from his banking job afterwards. So that episode's up from last night. You can check it out on my channel. It's a good hour of solid gold stuff. Yeah, but that's what the difference is, between the two. Like playing to win is a totally different outcome. And while it sounds the same as playing not to lose is really just, I don't want to have a shitty life. I mean, you can play not to lose and be the manager of a McDonald's. I bet you're probably going to make $100,000 a year running a McDonald's in a busy part of the city. Yeah. But that's a playing not to lose approach to life. You're lining somebody else's pocket with gold. You're a corporate slave. You're basically sheep. You're told what to do, and you color within the lines. And that's not particularly fulfilling for most people. For some people, that might be what their only objective is in life. But when you're playing to win, you tick off all the boxes that matter to you. It's not just revenue. You also get recognition for what you do. You get big money for what you do. You have the ability to maneuver for what you do. At some point, you have the ability to tell people to go pound sand, which I've done many times throughout my life. You've seen me do it publicly on my channel at least once or twice in the last 3 years. So that's to me what playing to win looks like. Yeah.
And I saw you interview Caleb Jones quite recently, and I've always been I really like his stuff. I think he's cool. I think he's got some great things to say, both about this, but also about some of the more the dating stuff, the non-monogamy stuff. I think is really interesting. But I think part of his ethos, I think, is he talks about the Unchained Man, doesn't he? That's the title of his book, and he talks about he really regards self-employment as being almost core to being a self-actualized guy, like a man on his own path and everything. I mean, would you go along with that, or is there any exceptions to that? Or
yeah, there's not much that I see different with the way that he's outlined, position and lifestyle choice in that book. I mean, it's a great book. I mean, I have it on my recommended reading list on my Amazon store, so I definitely recommend guys check it out. I don't have anything to challenge there whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, so if guys are watching this and they're in the cubicle or they're not in the cubicle at the moment because they're at home, but they are in that sort of stereotypical corporate job. Would your advice be to everybody? You really need to look at ways to get out of that and to start to be, to do something for yourself, or do you think that
it's not for everybody? Like, I'll be totally honest with you. It's like, going out on your own is not for everybody. It's way harder than you think it is. And the reward that you get, for the most part, from, like, most businesses fail within the first couple of years. Something like, I don't know, 8 or 9 out of 10 businesses completely fail. And the stats on successful entrepreneurs, meaning, like, the way that I gauge it is the business is doing over $1 million a year in annual sales. So something like 98% of businesses never reach over $1 million a year in annual sales receipts. So we're talking about the guy that, runs a dry cleaning business, the guy that has a dog walking business, the Molly Maid franchise owner that cleans houses. Like, all of these people that claim to be entrepreneurs, you see them online, you see them on LinkedIn, you see them on dating profiles, and they're like, I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a boss lady, or a boss man, or I'm in the hustle. Most of them are not top shelf, right? 98% of them are well below that. So do I recommend everybody leaves a corporate cubicle job? Yeah. Is it feasible? Is it possible for everybody to do? No. I mean, there's a reason why employers have the vast majority of human resources under their roof, right? Because most people don't have the balls. First of all, they don't have the know-how, and they don't have the mental fortitude to deal with all the struggles that can come your way as an entrepreneur. Like I said, it's not as simple as copy and paste to success. It's way harder than that. Yeah.
Just to sort of play devil's advocate a little bit, though, does it matter if somebody says, and we can go into passion versus maybe following the money in a second, but does it matter if somebody says, listen, I just really love, I don't know, scuba diving, so I'm going to set up this little scuba diving school. It's only going to bring me under 100,000 a year in terms of income, but I don't care because that's just what I want to do. That's how I want to live my life. Yeah. That's perfectly valid, but that's sort of different to what you're talking about in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, to me, that's not an entrepreneur. That's somebody that's created a job for themselves. There's lots of people, you go down south to the Caribbean, they're doing what they love. They got a scuba diving school, they bought their boat, they take people out on tours, they pay their, local council taxes or dues, whatever they have to keep running that little outfit. And maybe they're making 100, 200 grand a year. Yeah. But I mean, down there, that probably lets them live quite happily.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. Do they have the ability to maneuver? Do they have great options? I don't know. I mean, but they seem quite happy when I come across them. So there's nothing to say there's anything wrong with that, or that's the wrong way to go about it. But I don't see that as somebody that's an entrepreneur. To me, an entrepreneur solves a big problem. They create a business. They employ people. Those to me are the things. And they're also doing over $1 million a year in sales receipts. Anything below that, it's basically a solopreneur. You've created something for yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as you say, there's nothing sort of like wrong with that in a sense, but that's not really what you're about in terms of your coaching or where you're taking guys. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, like I've got a tier of membership in my community for my brotherhood. It's called the Entrepreneurs Brotherhood. And to qualify, you've got to be doing over $250,000 a year in annual sales to get into it. And you've got to be the founder of the business too. So those two components, to me mean that they've got a proven model, something that works, and that they want to build onto it. So we have 4 meetings every month. They usually run for about 3.5 hours. We do them
Cool.
over Zoom. They're private. There's a constitution that governs how we run it. If somebody's not behaving properly, then they get removed from it. It's a proper investment in your time and your business. And if you're doing under than that, I see it as you don't qualify for somebody that wants to build into that. But if they want to move into that area and they want to grow their business, and that's to me a great direction to take. And it's worked well for many people. But there's a very blurry line. Like I have one guy that's in my community that's a real hustler, right? But he probably doesn't do over $200,000, $250,000 a year, but he knows where to buy stuff for cheap and then resell it back on different platforms like eBay for good profits. Like during the start of this COVID stuff, he was buying weights, dumbbells, kettlebells, stuff like that, and flipping them for profits, 50, 75%, maybe even 100% more than what he paid for it, because there's such a demand for people that wanted to work out from home. Is he going to do over $1 million a year in sales receipts? No, he's not even going to come close. But he's in a position where he's happy, and that's what he wants to do. And to me, that's a solopreneur, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I suppose there's this sort of not conflict exactly, but there is a sort of guys will come at this in two different ways, won't they? In a sense, I mean, there is somebody who wants to do something, and I suppose this is where passion comes into it, because guys will be passionate about a certain thing, and they'll sort of think, okay, well, I really love X, so how can I build a business around X? And that's one thing. And then the other thing is you will then get guys who say, well, I just want to make I just want to make multi-millions, and I want to have 17 Lambos and whatever. And they will probably be more led by the market in a sense. I mean, they'll go after what they think is a good opportunity. But you talk about passion, don't you? I watched the video you did where you talked about the non-negotiables you have for a business idea, and you did say for you passion is key. So. Have you got to find something sort of in between the two?
Yeah, there's got to be an overlap. It's like two circles overlapping, and then kind of in the middle there, somewhere between passion and revenue, you've got something that blends nicely. I mean, there's some purpose in there as well too, but you can be passionate about walking people's dogs. Yeah. But you're never going to make $1 million a year walking people's dogs. Right? Yeah. You could be running a business that does $20 million a year. Like I know people that run businesses that do well over $10 million a year, but they hate their business, man. They created something that they absolutely despise. Yeah. They have no passion for it whatsoever. So the lines can blur. It's a moving goalpost. It's not always steady. I mean, the thing with a business is it's like a living, breathing thing. You've always got to adapt and maneuver. What I'm doing today is different from what I did 3 years ago, is different from what I did 10 years ago, even though it might seem like similar sort of thing or in the same kind of business. Even if you use my debt business as the example, I'm still involved in it, right? Yeah. I mean, but my brother handles the day-to-day, so I'm more of the chairman, right? So I just kind of sit there to kind of consult on things that he might need help with. But those lines do move around a lot, and you can have one or the other, but ideally you want to have all of them kind of blended in. And it's that sweet spot somewhere in the middle where you're making bank, you're being recognized for what you do, you're having impact. Like those things matter.
Yeah. I mean, how do you advise somebody determines the size of a potential market then? So if somebody's really, I mean, like the typical things are like fitness, or people come into this space because they're interested in girls or dating or something, and they sort of think, okay, so I want to create a business around this. So what's the best steps for that person to work out if this is even a viable thing or not?
Most people go about it the wrong way. I've seen a lot of guys that will get into like the whole dating stuff, or they want to leave an impression in the men's space that helps them improve their dating life and how they deal with women. And they've got no audience, and they'll write a book. And they'll go and spend forever writing a 200-page book, and then nobody buys it. And it's like, well, you're surprised, you've got like a few hundred subscribers on your YouTube account and a very small following, and only a handful of people watch it. I mean, you're not in a great position to push that out, because one of the things that I learned a long time ago is if you're going to do something and offer something publicly, you need to have an audience to sell it to. You need to have an email list. You need to have a YouTube audience. You need to have followers on platforms, because a lot of the times when you make an offer, not many people will buy. Most of them will be there to watch your free content. The vast majority of people when I do a poll on my community tab of YouTube, I don't know if you have the community tab on yours.
Yes, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you can post pictures, you can do polls. And I did a poll once and I said, here's the 4 categories of videos that I do right now. What do you want to see more of? And there was a big push for more of the playing to win, how to be a 1% man, how to make bank, how to have impact, like that category. But the funny thing is, that's what they're voting for. That's what they indicate they have interest in. But when I put out a video like I did last night, it got like, the lowest views that you'll see out of any category. If I put out a video that, is red meat, like, this woman left a guy that she thought was a poor loser, but she found out later that he was a winner. And here's me reading the article about it for 15 minutes. That'll get 100,000 views, man. I could do a video right now on why Harry's a cuck and how, he shouldn't have left the military and abandoned his purpose to go and fulfill hers. And I'll get 100,000 views. I put out something with Pijman last night and it's got less than 10,000 views, something that would get far more reach. So, people indicate interest in it, but there's very few people that want to execute on it. It's almost like they want to masturbate to the idea of greatness and excellence, but they'll never go out and do the work. Like they'll masturbate to the porn, but they'll never go out and make the cold approach to the pretty girl sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
To actually have the physical interaction and the contact.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certainly a lot of mental masturbation going on in this space for sure. Something else. So in terms of the 4 like non-negotiables that you mentioned, so the second one, and this is something that I need to look at more myself, although I am in the space now, is the idea of subscription revenue. So like recurring revenue, and I mean that makes a lot of sense, right? Particularly if you're in the sort of content creation space, but I guess other arenas as well. I mean, could you talk around that a little bit in terms of I mean, I know the value, but just in terms of the value of that and what guys should look at.
So I mean, like the biggest difference between eating what you kill and having the farm feeding you every day, 2 different things, right? A lion goes out, hunts, kills, eats, it's full, and then it probably sits around and sunbathes for like a week until it's hungry again, and then it goes out and repeats the process. The difference being between eating what you kill and doing the work and chasing the revenue and it just coming to you every single day is very, very different. Like a cell phone contract, for example, for Rogers Mobile or TELUS or Bell Canada here, for example, they open the door at the start of the month and they know how much money is coming in every single month because they have so many members that are subscribed to pay whatever their fee is for their rate. So they can calculate exactly what their revenue flow is. So it was around 2005 or 6. I was still eating what I was killing with my debt business, meaning we would go out, we would find mortgage brokers that had people with credit card debt, take a look at the credit report, negotiate the deal. When the mortgage would close, we'd get paid out. So we'd get paid out delayed and in hopes that we would get paid. Most of the time we got paid, but there was 2 times that I didn't get paid. And the second time I got ripped off for, I think it was close to $14,000, like $13,008. And I personally worked this file myself, so I took it real personal. Like I started having thoughts in my head that would have put me in jail if I executed because I was so pissed off at this guy that screwed me over, and he had no reason to. It's just he was a crooked POS. So I vowed from that point never to put myself in a position where I was constantly eating what I was killed in the hopes that I could eat it. A lion could go out and hunt, kill a zebra, and then a bunch of hyenas could go in and steal his kill from him, right? So it's a risk that you're always going to have if you're hunting, eating what you kill. Real estate agents deal with the same thing. They don't have a book of business where they open the doors and they have recurring revenue coming in. They always have to do real estate transactions that get paid. Same thing with mortgage brokers. They always have to do real estate transactions that get paid. So I figured out a way to pivot the business and turn it around so that we had customers that we could serve that I didn't rely on the mortgage industry to pay me on. I didn't rely on the consumer to actually hold up his end of the bargain and pay me and not be a slime ball. They were paying me as they signed up into the program, meaning we were getting recurring steady revenue every single month, as we opened the doors. And that relationship would last anywhere from 3, 4, maybe to 5 years. So that's a far better business model because you always know you have money coming in. I could get sick and not work for a month. I could go on vacation and not work for a month. And I know that I've always got steady recurring revenue coming to me because that's how I've structured my life. Yeah.
And actually, I think I'm right in saying even your Entrepreneurs in Cars stuff, that side of your work, that's all structured on a sort of recurring income basis as well, right? So you haven't, because you haven't gone down the route of, you haven't got like a big course that you're selling or something like that. It's all about.
No, I'm the only guy that hasn't sold a course yet. I was actually thinking about putting a course on how to get divorced like a boss, because that's what I spend most of my time on coaching on. People book me for one-on-one on how to go through the divorce machine without getting screwed. So I might build something like that in the future, but I'm one of the few guys that doesn't have a course. Most of my recurring revenue comes from private equity investments that I have, my debt business, small amount from YouTube ad revenue, and then I have my community, which has different tiers. So I've got a general tier which I participate and I contribute to monthly. We got a workshop next week on like every month I always try to put out some premium content, whether it's a private video that's behind the paywall or it's a workshop. The one we're doing next week is on TRT and underground labs and how to optimize that. That's stuff you can't put out publicly on YouTube. Plus we have daily conversations about people chiming in on things that they're stuck on. Plus I have a higher tier which has to deal with entrepreneurs, which obviously pays more. And I always know, like I have my calendar here. It's like, okay, I know I got to put my calendar because it's May. Like I know on May 19th, I've got my forum meeting with my guys. So I got to prepare for that, but they're also monthly subscribe payers too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you think about a lot of people in the sort of manosphere or red pill space or whatever, a lot of it is actually, and myself included in this, and again, this is something that I'm looking at, a lot of it is you eat what you kill on a daily basis. So it's effectively like a sales operation. And the more of that can be made into recurring income, the better, really. But I think, like you say, I think a lot of people probably just come into this in the wrong way, don't they? Or they don't come into it with that sort of structured thinking that they need before they start. Would you, I mean, people will look at like the career of the YouTuber or the content creator, and they think that many people think it's a sort of an aspirational thing. They think because they think it'll be quite easy, etc. Being honest, if you hadn't have had your other success with your other business, would you have ever gone into this just as a business on a standalone basis, or would you have avoided it because actually it's quite a difficult thing to sort of monetize or to make a sustainable living from?
Well, for the kinds of things that we talk about and how you have to deliver the message about what we talk about, like everybody's been fed a steady diet of comforting lies their entire life, which for the most part don't work. They don't work for the creation of wealth. They don't work with women. They just don't work for life in general for men. When Rollo talks about the female primary social order, I don't think that even he understands the extent that it is saturated the life of society. Like I see it a lot in divorce. I see optimization made there on the feminine imperative far beyond what most guys even recognize based on all the conversations and experiences that I've had. So it's wide and it's spread. But when you approach it from the perspective, okay, I got to crush these comforting lies with uncomfortable truths. Join me at Bomber Command as I drop these cold hard truth bombs, as I get shot with flack I get shot with flack from male feminists, from white knights, from simps, from feminazis, from single moms. I go down the list. I get like PUAs, MGTOW. I get shit on by everybody for what I talk about, but nobody can dispute the things that I say. They just don't like what I say. Right. So when you start doing that on a public platform like YouTube, which is quite difficult because you have to water down the delivery, but at the same time, I have to get the message out somehow. Right. So I leave the most in-depth, useful content that I can behind the paywall so that I don't get banned, because I've been banned. Like I got thrown off Facebook, I think 2 or 3 times last month, and I had to shut down my page because of it. So you run the risk of trying to reach your audience and be useful, but at the same time, because of the things that you say, the truth sounds like hate to those that hate the truth, right? So it's a very hard way to get out there and help people. If you're going to do it, I think that you want to be as anti-fragile as possible so that even if you do get banned, it's not going to affect you personally, right? Like you can't get fired. You're not going to lose a significant source of your income. And I think I've positioned myself in a way that I'm pretty safe in that sense, which is why I say the things that I say, and I build out the product and the content that I do. But for most guys, if they haven't built a life where they've got a couple $1,000,000 stashed away, it's very hard to get reach, because you will get banned at some point, right? Like you will have trouble with reach and talking to people at some point, because of the way society is today. They're very sensitive.
Yeah, because in this specific space, like you say, there's this sort of conflict between trying to say what you want to say, but keeping it watered down enough that the platforms aren't just going to ban you.
Correct.
So it's a real conundrum, isn't it, for people? But what are some of the mistakes that you see guys making who come in to, say, the men's self-development arena and then
most of them don't know what the hell they're talking about, if I'm being honest. Most of them like to pretend like they know what they're talking about, but they got so many holes in their story. It's like Swiss cheese, right? You've probably noticed the same thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But if somebody comes in and then they start trying to monetize it, they're doing it as a commercial thing. What sort of do you think it's just because their message isn't on point? They don't really know what they're talking about, but do they make more mistakes in terms of their business, the way that they try to structure their business as well?
I think that most of these guys either chase it as a passion or they chase it as money. Yeah. And you can't make money if you're chasing a passion. If you're chasing a hobby, it's just a hobby. You're just basically calling your hobby a business, which it's not. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where they're chasing money and hoping that it will be something that they're passionate about or that they're truly going to enjoy. The real magic is when you blend those two. And you've also got some self-preservation, like you set yourself up, like I said, so that you're anti-fragile. But for the most part, I mean, I only associate with people that I think are useful and competent and, provide something, which is why I collaborate with you and the other guys from Rule Zero. Like if somebody were to say to me, what's the best pickup artist out there, the best pickup course, the best cold approach, I'd say, take a look at Troy's stuff, right? If somebody were to say to me, what's the best way to rekindle a sexless marriage or a sexless bedroom, I'd say, talk to Ryan, right? Yeah. You want to get great at online game, John's got good stuff. Yeah. So everybody's kind of like good at their own thing, but I haven't found anybody in that network that is a complete Muppet that I'd want to distance myself from. I've distanced myself from Muppets in the past. You see me do it. Yeah. So, yes, of course. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that talk stuff that is not particularly supportive, I think anyway, of the strong masculine virtues that I want to see men accomplish and reach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. In terms of, what about passive income then? Because that was always a big buzzword for a long time, wasn't it? And it still gets talked about a little bit. I mean, is passive income?
There's no real true form of passive income. No, it's like there's no real true form of passive income. I mean, I don't have the checks here. I had to put them away, but I have probably one of the lowest maintenance form of passive income when it comes to private equity investments, because all I necessarily need to do is cash checks every single month. But if you're a landlord and you own a building and you have tenants, right now with COVID, there's a lot of tenants not paying the rent. How is that passive income if you're not getting the income? You're going to have repairs and maintenance on buildings. Like somebody has to manage that. Are you going to manage it, or are you going to pay somebody else to manage it? Like most sources that people consider passive income are not truly passive income. You've got to do work to earn the passive income. All of them. I can't think of, I mean, aside from dropping money into like an investment savings account, you put 100 grand into like a Tangerine account here, which used to be ING Direct for those that are worldwide watching this. You might earn, I don't know, like 1% on it, 1.5% if the rates are decent. You can't really live off that unless you got $10 million stashed away. And then even then, your principal over time is going to erode because of inflation. That's really the only source of passive income that I can think of. But there's no risk-free sources of passive income. You've got to maintain anything that you do on a consistent basis. The question is, how do you structure it so that you've got good recurring revenue with the least amount of maintenance that you need to apply to it possible? It's like the difference between buying something like a Honda and, I don't know, like what's another highly like a Alfa Romeo, because
Mm.
the Alfa is going to require a lot of maintenance. It's a nice Italian car. It looks pretty. It ticks off the box. It's very sexy, but it's not as reliable as a Honda. A Honda, you're going to drive, 400, 500,000 miles without any problems. The Alfa, you're going to have problems with, right? So, you got to look at what it is that you're doing. The Honda is going to be the one that you're going to look at that's going to be more reliable, but it's not going to be as fun for you. It's not going to be as fun as the Alpha. So there's differences there that you got to consider too.
Yeah, actually, and it's just reminded me of something. I saw a show that you did quite recently with an entrepreneur, youngish guy from one of your groups, and he was talking about the importance of basically high price points, right, in your business, because
that was Xander,
yeah, because you need to obviously you need to chase fewer sales. I mean, that is clearly something that's very important as well, isn't it? In terms of because a lot of people chase this sort of low hanging fruit, but you're just sort of chasing your tail. So to bring it back actually to what I was just saying about passive income, I think one thing that people suggest is a little bit more passive is through an ad buying model, isn't it? So they'll say you've got this product. So whether that's a drop shipping type thing, or whether it's even, I suppose you could do it for a course, maybe even where it's a slightly higher ticket item, and then they just say, right, just buy ads, get your ad buying automated, and then that it almost is almost passive. I mean, you've still got to obviously monitor your ad buy, but what do you think about that? That sort of idea?
I don't like physical products because you get problems with return, shipping. You get problems with the supply chain. Your supplier could unilaterally change their mind. You can get if it's something or a mold that you've developed. There's all kinds of problems that come with physical products. There's a lot of people that make great money in physical products, but there's an extra layer of complexity that's added to selling a physical product. So for me, my interest is mostly either in service-based business, digital products, because you can move that practically for free. I mean, for example, you've got your digital product, which is your Charisma course. It's like $300. Your only cost to administer the sale is your credit card processing fees. It doesn't cost you anything to deliver it. So if somebody says, I want a refund, Troy, you're like, okay, this is my policy. And, if it's a refund or whatever, it doesn't cost you anything to ship it back. It doesn't get broken in the mail. It doesn't get lost in the mail. You don't have any problems with sourcing your product from China and it coming to your place and you got to repackage it and ship it out. None of those problems happen when you have either service-based, digital, or community-based.
Yeah. And then I suppose in theory, you could sell, I'm just trying to think of whether a model would work where you just buy ads to whatever you're trying to sell, and that kind of does the job. Because a lot of what I do as a sort of a content creator is I spend a lot of time, and you could probably argue it's quite inefficient, really. I spend a lot of time putting out content on different platforms in order to draw attention to myself and what I offer, so that people hopefully buy it. You could say, well, if you just ran a load of ads, that would take out some of the work. But then at the same time, the reason I think that people buy is they have to buy into you, don't they? So I'm trying to think if there's another example of some sort of digital product you could sell through just running ads to it.
There's a lot of guys that run ads. I mean, if you go to YouTube at any time and you start watching videos, especially if you start watching videos about finance, real estate, you'll start to see a lot of pre-roll ads with young kids standing in front of exotic cars telling you that they've got a free training, so sign up now. You don't have a direct relationship with them, right? I don't like. Why would I take advice from somebody that's younger than me? Why would I be interested in anybody that's younger than me that's going to tell me how to make money, how to get the girls, how to create passive income? Most of these guys, I wouldn't even listen to begin with. So from my perspective alone, and for most guys, you should always consider the source, right? Like if your source is a youngish guy standing beside a car that, is an exotic, you don't know if he owns or he rented or it's his dad's, and he's selling you some course or some opt-in for a free training to learn how to copy and paste certain bullshit. Like those that can do, those that can't will usually teach some stuff. Now, there's a unique group of people that will teach, that don't need to teach, but they like teaching, right? Which is a small carve out for it. But back to your question about paying for ads to make money. I don't like that personally. I've never paid for any advertising for anything that I've done with my YouTube channel and anything in and around that. Not once. I've never paid a single dime. I've paid a lot of money to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Google pay-per-click, Bing pay-per-click, Yahoo pay-per-click for my debt business. And you're always chasing the potential customer. And the difference with that is I don't know them. They don't have a relationship with me. They don't have a contact with me. I'm a cold sort of prospect to them, right? Like they're a cold prospect to me. But if I go on my YouTube channel and say, hey guys, I'm opening up my business tier. I'm going to take in, 10 new members for a new forum. It's limited to 10. Sign up now. I guarantee I can fill that within a couple weeks, right? Whenever I make the announcement. So it's always better to sell to a warm audience that know, like, and trust you already. Yeah. Versus the YouTube model, which is like I'll give you the pitch for the YouTube model because I ran YouTube ads for my debt business, and the ad was something like, "Hey guys, if you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, I want you to watch this video. If you haven't, skip this ad now. It's not for you." Because right away, I'm getting rid of people that are not a good fit for what I'm offering, and I'm trying to identify who it is that is a good fit for what I'm offering. Now, these are people that are going to watch this going, who's this bald clown telling me to watch this ad about my credit card debt? So then I've got another 30 seconds to try to get them to click through, because that's when the free period ends on YouTube. And after that, then you're paying for the click. So I try to get them to click through the landing page, and then I want to capture their email address and their phone number. So that's the top of the funnel. And then I start going down to the bottom of the funnel when my sales guys start calling people, or it goes through the email marketing funnel. And by the time they get the phone call or they get the offer in the email, they've forgotten about their debt. They've got other problems that are more pressing. So I mean, like, the industry that you hit on too also matters as well. I mean, the ones that are the biggest triggers for people are get paid, get laid, get six-pack abs, right? So make money, get the girls, and self-care, basically. Those are the big industries. When I sell, excuse me, when I sell on the debt relief stuff, that's not a big thing for most people. It's why so many people have debt, because it's invisible. I can tell when you're sick and obese because it shows. I can see you. You're a fat pig. But I can't tell if you got $100,000 of credit card debt. You can never tell. Nobody knows that you're dragging that around. It's hidden. It's in the background. So people aren't that inclined to do something about it, right? So you also got to consider the industry that you're in too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely right though, because if the whole value of content marketing, which is, I guess, what we're doing, what you're doing with Entrepreneurs in Cars, and what I've done with my stuff, is that you're building a direct relationship with the audience. And some people are going to love you, some people aren't, and that's fine. But the people that love you, hopefully a proportion of those people are going to buy into your offer. I just don't see how that can work through advertising, really, unless, I suppose, if somebody does a video ad on YouTube and they're particularly compelling at the beginning, you might start to buy into them. But it's
here's how I could advertise myself if I wanted to run paid ads. For example, like I was telling you earlier, I was thinking about putting a course together on how to get divorced like a boss, so you don't lose the farm, right? I've already got some recognition on YouTube because I have a channel and I have an audience. There's close to 40 million views on my channel, so there's been eyeballs on what I do. So I've got some brand recognition. So for me, it would probably make sense if I have the right price point. Now, generally speaking, the price point on YouTube, if you're going to advertise, is about $2,000. If your product costs less than $2,000, you're probably not going to make any money off YouTube ads if you're running it. So if you're to run your charisma course at $300 on YouTube, you're probably not going to make any money on it. In fact, you're probably going to lose a lot of money. So the price point that you're selling at with the recognition from your brand matters. So for me to run an ad saying, hey guys, I'm going to do this program on how to get divorced like a boss. Here's my webinar link over here. I'm going to give you some of the nuggets, and then you can decide if you want to buy. I probably get a decent conversion rate, but it's not going to make me millions of dollars. In fact, it's probably not going to make me a lot of money, if I'm being honest. I'm not particularly fond of paying for advertising on platforms if you don't already have recognition and brand acknowledgement. And there's so many guys that I turn on YouTube and I press play, and they're paying for advertising to YouTube, but I have no idea who the hell they are. They just look like young punks that have rented a car.
Yes, indeed, and probably many of them are. What about So say somebody's watching this now and they've got this idea for a business and they're thinking, right, I want to go for it. I want to do this. You've talked before about bootstrapping versus, I suppose, venture capital. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, my inclination has always been to bootstrap because it just seems kind of easier and it's more my inclination. But what do you what do you
that's
think
my
about
preference, right? But I mean, there's certain businesses that you can't bootstrap on. Like I know this guy on my business chair. So let me try to describe this as vaguely as possible without giving away the details a bit. So he's doing something that's blockchain based that requires a lot of coding. So there's a lot of man hours that are going to have to go into place to kind of build the framework for what it is that he's doing. The good news is it's in an industry where there's a lot of attention. There's a lot of people on platforms. Like we could take something like gaming as an example. There's a lot of men that play video games. In fact, arguably, probably more men that play video games than actually play actual sports or even watch actual sports today. And that's going to continue to grow. So for him to build something that would plug into that, he's going to need a shitload of money to build the entire framework to make sure that it works and that it's profitable. So that's not something that's arguably that you could build as a bootstrap type of business. You're going to have to give up some capital. You're going to have to take on some venture money, and you're going to need investors for it. But doing something like I've done with YouTube, for example, or doing a charisma course or building an audience on YouTube based on approach, style, and the kind of things that you talk about, you're not going to go out there, Troy, and say, hey, I want to go to an angel investing company and give me $500,000 or $10 million for my next round of funding because I want to reach more guys and show them how to get the girls, sort of thing. That's not a model that they're going to be particularly interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've also talked about staff, because I mean, and again, maybe we're just coming back to this sort of not conflicts, but the decision between, are you going to be a solopreneur and are you going to keep things relatively, is this more of a lifestyle choice for you, or is it a bigger, do you want to grow this into something bigger?
No, I'm fine. I don't need a business like that anymore. I mean, I did that with my debt business where I employed close to 25 people and we were doing at its peak almost $300,000 a month. I actually have a video on my channel that I got to release in the next week or two. I just finished recording it and doing the editing, kind of breaking down that story about how I built the business. But I would never do it again where I run a business like that. Employees, like now in today's world, they're way too expensive and they're more trouble than what they're worth. You have to, with the government's leaning more towards liberalism and increasing minimum wage unnecessarily, arguably. I mean, I'm more of a fan of libertarian sort of politics where you let the market decide what people should be paid, not have the government tell me, oh, you have to pay somebody this to do a job. Well, what ends up happening in that scenario is it becomes either too expensive for the employer to run with it because of their cost profile, or they're going to have to automate and outsource those jobs anyway, which means that guy doesn't have a job to begin with because I've got to limit it to something that's a lot simpler for me to be profitable to run the business. And politicians don't understand that. Not only that, but employees bang each other. They take days off sick. They leave. They steal your intellectual property. They steal products and services. There's huge theft issues. If you let them go, you have no rights as an employer. You know, like I've had to deal with tribunal issues where I had an employee that had stolen my customer list, stolen my systems, and behind the scenes for months corroborated with other people to do all this. And what I did was I put a stop payment on her check because I was so pissed off. In the normal world, you'd be justified with doing something like that because they're a crooked thief and they screwed you over and you're paying them while they're screwing you over. But then you go to the tribunal and the labor board's like, nope, I don't care. You owe them the money. You have to cut them the check. Otherwise, we're going to do all these things to your business and make your life miserable. So you have no rights as an employer. So my view on it is if you're going to start a business, do it with minimum headcount or contract out work if you have to have manpower doing things for you. But I've gotten to the point where the debt business that I used to run, that I was involved in daily, has basically whittled down to like a special ops team, like MI5 sort of thing. So rather than have an entire army of grunts, we've basically whittled it down to the best people, the best systems, and it's a special forces. So that's the way that I would run a business. But the problem is you don't know how to get there until you've had the army of grunts that are like walking, banging their heads against the wall, doing dumb things that cost you a lot of money and problems. It's not as glamorous as what a lot of people think it is, right?
Well, I think there's a bit of ego tied up with this sometimes, isn't there? Because I think some guys, they go into this and they have this idea they want to be the boss, and they want to have a glass offices, and they want to have like a load of look out from their corner office and see all these people working for them and stuff. And it's just sort of like, well, but really, do you really want that? Do you really want all that hassle?
Hey, listen, I had the vision board, and if you guys go back on my video, I think within the first 25 videos, there's a video that I did around 2015 about vision boards and painted pictures. So if you go to YouTube and you search for Entrepreneurs and Cars, actually, I'll try to look it up as Troy's talking in a second. But if you watch that video, I have a picture of a vision board, and I had a picture of the big glass tower, the car, the watch, all that stuff. And I did everything, and I got all those things. But at the end of the day, it basically let me create a life and a business that I really didn't like. And it went into a direction that was just something that wasn't sustainable long-term. So while it might seem sexy and attractive today, right now, it can change over time because, the market conditions do move. It's a moving post. It's a living, breathing thing.
Yeah. And I mean, we were saying the other day as well, anyway, I mean, what with COVID, but also with automation coming in, right? I mean, it seems like the world of work is rapidly changing anyway. I mean, do you think? I mean, companies are going to always need employees if they're going to scale in that big way, right? But at the same time, do you think we're just moving more and more towards this gig economy where it's going to be more contracting, it's going to be more people working from home? Do you think the old model is sort of, kind of coming apart at the seams anyway?
Yeah, it's definitely coming apart at the seams. And the sorry, I'm just going to put the video in here for you guys in the YouTube chat. So there you go. It's definitely coming apart in the seams. I think it was Aaron Cleary that put out a blog post a couple months ago about let them have corporate America, and I totally agree with it. It's turned into a feels shit show. I mean, and it's not just in North America, man. Like I have guys that I've talked to in South America and parts of the developing world where they're like, I can't believe I can't perform my task because I keep having HR people breathing down my throat telling me that I'm not politically correct enough or that I'm not conforming to their BS rules. It's everywhere. So if you work in corporate America, you're going to have to learn how to put up with that crap.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that's certainly the case over here as well. I mean, it's just, that's just the way it all is now, isn't it? Well, listen, there was one other thing that I wanted to ask you. If people, because obviously your YouTube channel now is massive, isn't it? I mean, you're up at what, 220 odd thousand, I think, subscribers. So you've been very successful, obviously, on the platform. If somebody was coming to you today and they said, right, so how do I grow a big YouTube channel? How do I get stand out on the platform? What advice would you give them?
Well, with YouTube, at the end of the day, it's the content that matters the most because people aren't going to watch you can have the best thumbnail and the best title, but if they're not watching your content and they're not coming back for more, it's utterly pointless. So you have to get your head right around what it is that you're delivering, the story. Like you're either going to YouTube to be entertained or informed / educated. So decide what you're doing. The entertainment stuff, it's the prank videos, it's the family vlogging, it's the Mr. Beast stuff, stuff like that. The informed stuff is more along the lines of, Discovery Channel, like people are coming to you to learn something. So make sure you get your content squared away. Prior to that, then you need to figure out how to write compelling titles and thumbnails for your videos, because that's what creates a click-through rate. And when you have a good click-through rate for the video, it's gonna encourage YouTube to want to recommend your stuff to new viewers. A lot of people will say to you, oh, why don't you go on BitChute or Minds or one of these other platforms? Why don't you move over there and talk about your stuff over there? That's bullshit, because there's nobody there that's going to discover you. The only people going there are people that are leaving YouTube because they want an alternative platform to hear about the stuff that's going to nurture their victim mindset beliefs anyway. I want to talk to new people, and YouTube is still the best place to get discovered. So you have to figure out how to deliver the content, how to have a great thumbnail and title that gets people to click through and watches the entire video. Because for YouTube, the algorithm matters in the sense of, are they watching the video through to the end? Because all that YouTube cares about is, are you staying on the platform watching what it is that you're watching?
Yeah, so in the end, it comes down to ultimately, it comes down to quality of content, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in the sense,
And
persistence.
And persistence, because it's a long game. There's not many guys out there that can start up a YouTube channel and get to like 1 million followers, let alone 100,000 followers within about the first year. It's a very long, slow game, and even then, it's up and down. Like I've seen hyper growth where I've had 1,000, 5,000 subscribers a day, right? And normally it's a couple hundred a day. Like it can be as low as 100 a day or even less. So I've even seen weeks where I've had them unsubscribe my followers, where I've had negative days, right? So it's up and down, and you have to realize, you're basically building your business on somebody else's platform. So that's the other risk too, is if you're going to do that, you need to have direct contact with your customers, with your audience. So either email list, text message enrollment, but you want to be able to talk to them directly if you lose access to the platform.
Yes, and that's important for all platforms, isn't it? Because ultimately we're
100%.
building on other people's land, and we can get chucked off at any moment. So so that's really important. But listen, Richard, thanks ever so much for coming on. It's been really awesome to pick your brains on this stuff. Where can guys find you, or if they want to learn more, what should they do?
Yeah, just head over to my channel. It's just Entrepreneurs in Cars. If you want to get behind the paywall and make a little more contact and have a more intimate experience with more of the cold hard truth, and join my community. That's in the pinned top comment of all my videos anyway.
Great stuff. Okay, and from me, just to reiterate, Charisma and Dating Academy is on sale now. You can go to the link below for more information. It's available now until the end of the day on Monday, the 4th of May. So there's a limited sign-up period. So if you're interested in joining the course, and I hope that you do, just click the link below. And that's it. So we will see you again very soon. Many thanks again for coming on, Rich.
See you, man. Thanks.